All right, everybody, welcome back to another deep dive. You ready to jump into some fascinating stuff today?
Always.
Okay, awesome. So, you know how everyone always says New York City is like the ultimate dream for entrepreneurs, right? The energy, the opportunities, the hustle, it's iconic.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a peek behind that curtain today and see what it really takes to open a small business in this city that never sleeps. We've got some excerpts from Navigating NYC's Small Business Regulations, a survival guide to guide us. And trust me, it gets pretty wild.
I bet.
Oh, it does. It definitely does. You'd think, getting a permit, registering your business, that'd be it, right?
Yeah, that's what you'd think.
But oh no, the rabbit hole goes way deeper.
Way deeper. I mean, we're talking regulations on everything. Signage, sanitation, like even where you put your trash cans.
Oh, don't even get me started on the trash cans. I heard stories. So for all our listeners out there, paint us a picture. What's one of those regulations that someone might totally miss? Something that could really trip them up.
Okay, let's talk side.
Signs.
Signs. Seems simple, right? You just, design a cool logo, hang it up, you're good to go. But in NYC, no way.
There's rules about signs.
Oh, so many rules. Size, placement, the kind of font you use, even how bright it can be at night. All regulator.
Wow. Seriously.
Yeah, it's wild. It's all about maintaining the look and feel of the city, preventing visual clutter and all that.
I guess that makes sense in a way.
Yeah, it's all part of that New York City vibe.
So you could be like super excited about your grand opening and then bam, sign police show up.
Exactly. Not exactly the kind of buzz you want for your business, right?
Oh, for sure. And I bet there's a whole bunch of those little gotchas lurking around every corner, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, did you know some places need a dedicated sink just for washing mops?
What?
Yeah, like separate from everything else. It's a health code thing, apparently.
Okay, that's pretty specific.
It is, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So you can imagine trying to open, say, a coffee shop, a bookstore, anything really. You're dealing with this whole other layer of complexity.
You're not kidding. Okay, so we've got all these rules, some of them, let's be honest, pretty out there. But what's the actual impact on these businesses? Like, is it all bad?
That's a great question. It's definitely not black and white. There are upsides, for sure. Like, think about consumer protection.
Yeah, that's huge.
Right. Knowing that businesses are held to certain standards, it builds trust. And then there's fair competition, making sure everyone's playing by the same rules, that kind of thing.
Keeps those big chains from totally taking over.
Exactly. And let's not forget, a lot of these regulations are there for safety. I mean, remember that requirement for sprinkler systems in restaurants?
Right.
That came about after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire back in 1911.
Wow, yeah, a tragic piece of history, but also a powerful reminder of why those regulations exist.
Absolutely. Those regulations, they're born out of real events, to prevent those tragedies from happening again.
It's like a safety net, almost.
Exactly. But on the flip side, I mean, come on, let's be real. These regulations can be a real pain, especially in a city like New York where the cost of doing business is already sky high.
Right.
You're adding all these extra expenses, paperwork, inspections. It's time-consuming, stressful, and for a small business owner, time is that, right?
You bet it is.
So yeah, it's this double-necked sword. Regulations are important, but they can definitely make things a lot harder for businesses trying to get their footing.
And speaking of tough situations, the guide mentions some stories from actual business owners in the city.
Oh yeah, some real nail-biters in there.
What are some of the challenges they faced, any that really stood out?
Oh, there was this one about a bakery owner.
Okay, I love bakeries.
So do I. But this poor woman, she spent months battling zoning regulations just to get a bigger oven installed.
With their oven?
Yep. The city had strict rules about the type of equipment allowed in her space, emissions, all that jazz. It ended up costing her a fortune and the stress. I mean, you can only imagine.
I bet. Opening a bakery is already a ton of work.
Oh, yeah. And then there was this other entrepreneur who had their grand opening delayed because of a fire code thing.
Fire codes are no joke.
No joke at all. Turns out a lot of older buildings in the city have trouble meeting the requirements for multiple exits, clearly marked and all that.
Yeah, the layout of those old buildings can be tricky.
Definitely. And it can be a real nightmare for businesses trying to operate in those spaces. I mean, this guy, his whole opening was pushed back, lost a ton of potential revenue, all because of something he didn't even know about.
So, what's the takeaway here? Is opening a business in NYC just like mission impossible?
Not necessarily. It's definitely not easy, but there are ways to navigate this crazy system.
Okay, good. Because I'm starting to get a little intimidated. So, spill the beans. What's the secret sauce? What does the guide recommend?
First off, don't try to go it alone. There are tons of resources out there to help, most of them free.
Free is good.
Right. The NYC Small Business Services website, for example, it's like a gold mine of information. Regulations, permits, licenses, even workshops and mentoring programs.
Awesome. So bookmark that, everyone.
For sure. They also recommend connecting with other business owners, finding a mentor, joining those advocacy groups.
Power in numbers, right?
Exactly. Sharing experiences, learning from each other's mistakes, that kind of thing. Because let's be real, even with all the resources, there are going to be bumps in the road.
Oh, absolutely. So it's all about having a good support system and being prepared for the unexpected.
Totally. And another crucial thing is building relationships with the people at those city agencies.
Yeah, the folks who actually enforce the rules.
Exactly. Going to community board meetings, participating in local events, even just stopping by their offices to say hi. You'd be surprised how far a little face-to-face interaction can go.
Makes you more than just a name on a form.
Right? And being open, communicative, transparent with them, that's key. It shows you're serious about doing things right.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the how of these regulations. But what about the why? I mean, some of these rules seem pretty bizarre on the
You
surface.
do, don't they?
What's the story behind that?
Well, a lot of times it's history. Like, remember that sprinkler system example?
Yeah, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire?
Exactly. Tragic events like that, they often lead to new regulations being put in place to prevent similar things from happening again.
Makes sense.
And then you've got economic factors, protecting small businesses from being squeezed out by big corporations. That's a common one.
Keeps things fair.
Yep. And then, of course, there's politics. Certain regulations might be pushed by certain groups or politicians for their own reasons. You know how it goes.
Oh, yeah, it's all connected.
It is. So trying to understand the why behind a rule, it can help you make sense of it, even if it seems strange at first glance.
Definitely. I'm feeling way more enlightened now. So, out of all this, what was the most surprising thing you learned?
Honestly, it's the constant tug of war between protecting people and letting businesses thrive.
Yeah, I see that.
Like, how do you find that sweet spot where everyone benefits? That's the real challenge.
A balancing act for sure.
Big time. It makes you really appreciate the complexity of governing a city like New York.
Absolutely. Well, folks, there you have it. NYC's small business regulations. They're a wild ride full of twists, turns, and maybe even a few loop-a-loops. But hey, that's New York, right?
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Exactly. And if all this talk has got you thinking about opening your own business, whether it's in NYC or anywhere else, remember, knowledge is power. So do your research, arm yourself with information, and never be afraid to ask for help.
Great advice.
And if you want to really dive deep into the fascinating world of NYC regulations, definitely check out Navigating NYC's Small Business Regulations, a survival guide. It's packed with insights, tips, and real-life stories that will help you navigate this complex landscape.
It's a must-read.
Until next time, stay curious and keep on diving.
See ya. CNTS7.